Viewer note: this story is purely fictional and intended for entertainment purposes only. However, some content may be disturbing to certain audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Chapter 10: The Great Judgment. The tribunal's arrest warrants ignited the world like a flare slicing through the night sky. Those names once hidden deep in the shadows of power and money, the ones you thought only existed in conspiracy theories, buried in financial reports, or flashing briefly in international news tickers, they were now nailed, bare and exposed, to the pillar of shame for all of human civilization. This wasn't a victor's trial over the vanquished, not the justice of the powerful, not revenge by the strong. This was humanity's reckoning with the cancers of the old world. The Squid Group, those who manipulated financial markets, rigged political elections, monopolized military tech industries, twisted public opinion, and even meddled in medical supplies and food distribution, along with the politicians, royals, tycoons, and protectors who had sheltered them for decades. Their end had finally come. And it wasn't just Starland and Measy Nation. The wave of protest had spread like wildfire, racing across the so-called Group of Seven and far beyond, into nations long infiltrated by the Squid's web. The once glossy politicians and the royals, tycoons, and power brokers who had hidden behind them instinctively reached for their usual defenses. Silence, delays, bureaucratic red tape, legal loopholes, but they had miscalculated. The crowds in the streets, massive, furious, and impossible to ignore, swept over those defenses like a flood breaking through a dam. The protest signs grew sharper, clearer, more direct. Fully cooperate with the arrest warrants. Purge the officials blocking justice. We've had enough of these rats. And then, when bombs went off in city centers, targeting protesters, when so-called law enforcement officers finally dropped the act and showed their real faces, the anger boiled over. People stopped waiting for governments to act. They took to the internet, connecting, organizing, uniting across borders and social classes. What followed? A global, cross-class, citizen-led manhunt. The targets? No longer limited to the official arrest list. Now, they included any official, politician, royal, or corporate executive who looked even slightly suspicious. Citizen-led arrest squads, pop-up public tribunals. They became the most common and most shocking sights on streets around the world that autumn. Live-stream trials, instantly uploaded videos, billions of views, viral moments, global attention. Look, isn't that Henderson from City Hall? He vetoed the global extradition bill just last month. On a street corner, a young man held up his phone. The screen showed a chubby figure trying to duck into a luxury sedan. The crowd closed in fast like wolves surrounding their marked prey. "Scan the ID!" someone shouted, fingers flying over their device. "Yeah, that's him. Warrant 137. Within seconds, a few men in plain jackets stepped forward, calm, practiced, and utterly unhesitant, and yanked the pale, trembling Henderson straight out of the car. The pressure was crushing, like an avalanche, like a tsunami. Officials began resigning en masse, some overnight. Others fled under cover of darkness, disappearing onto private jets bound for islands with no extradition treaties, or countries so remote they barely showed up on maps. The media called it a modern echo of the Lily Revolution. But this time, it was bigger, more transparent, and far more participatory. This unprecedented great judgment wasn't just a trial. It was a complete upending of the old order. Judges from multiple nations formed a joint tribunal, but their role was simple: to deliver verdicts based on ironclad evidence. The real gravediggers were the anonymous data teams, hacker collectives, and citizen journalists operating in the shadows and in broad daylight. Digital vigilantes, ghost hackers, modern-day Robin Hoods armed with code and courage. They silently cracked open classified databases that had been sealed for decades, dumping out mountains of criminal records, secret transactions, encrypted orders, and internal memos. All of it fed into a global AI-powered justice hub, a networked system that analyzed, cross-referenced, and organized the data into crystal-clear chains of guilt. The algorithms were cold, merciless, precise, and what they uncovered was horrifying and undeniable. Financial plunder, human trafficking, organ harvesting, war plotting, food poisoning, sponsored terrorism, massacres. The evidence was rock solid. There was no defense. The trials were held in the cloud. Every session, live streamed to all of humanity. You didn't need to be a lawyer, didn't need a robe or a gavel. All you needed? A device with internet access. And then, you became part of the jury. The evidence chain is complete. The trail is clear, said a judge from a small southern nation, voice calm, steady. On screen, a simple voting prompt appeared. Guilty, not guilty. I vote guilty. A woman in her living room declared, apron still tied, tablet in hand. She didn't hesitate. Her husband nodded beside her and clicked the same button. Millions of voices, converging in a single, unstoppable verdict. The executions were swift. No appeals, no delays, no pardons. Once the judgment was passed, it was carried out immediately where the arrest happened, in public squares, in open fields, even in front of the luxury villas once considered untouchable. The stolen wealth, the criminal empires they'd built, torn down, seized, returned to the shared resources of humankind. Every day, new scandals emerged, dug up from the digital graves of corruption. More horrifying, more brutal, more shameless. Each new piece of evidence proved, beyond doubt, why this judgment was necessary. The cancer had to be cut out completely, before anything new could grow. No mercy, only cleansing. And then, as yet another arrestee clad only in pajamas and slippers was dragged, humiliated and red-faced, off a luxury yacht, the crowd erupted in a mix of anger and dark, satisfied laughter. Meanwhile, deep in the global servers, the systems handling real-time voting, evidence processing, and live-stream trials began flashing softly with warning messages, overload alerts,